Hi, welcome to another episode of the Base Marriage Podcast. I think this is episode 17, although the last one did not appear on YouTube. It was an audio only because, doggone, I was just tired and I didn't want to edit video. So you got an audio only version of the last podcast, which you can only find on your audio podcast apps. Or you can find it by going directly to the source at bmpnation.substack.com. That's where I'm hosting all the things, all the podcast episodes, a few extra posts, things like that. Anyways, if you have not yet subscribed, you can go over to BMP Nation, BMP like Base Marriage Podcast, bmpnation.substack.com and find all the goodies there. You can subscribe there or in your Apple Podcasts. You can even subscribe to the YouTube because this one is in full color on YouTube. This video and audio episode. Anyways, it'll be uploaded in both forms. So please hit that subscribe button so I know that you're listening and I can provide more information to you, more entertainment, advice, all the things. Remember that this podcast is for educational, informational purposes only. I don't know your particular situation, so I am not specifically giving you the information of what to do about your marriage and relationships or your life. But I hope that this is helpful education and information for you. Anyways, without further ado, let's go. Many men, especially Catholic men, seem to think that the average man is just awful. You're not going to help them if you think they're awful, because you're going to treat them as though they are awful and have no hope. Show me a president who hates the people who live in his country. Will they change for him? No. Will they follow him? No. Show me a CEO who hates his employees. Will they perform for him? No. Show me a priest who hates his congregants. Will they follow him? No. Will they grow in holiness? Absolutely not. Show a man who dumps on his neighbors all the time. Do the neighbors ever change? No. It makes things worse. Things just continue escalating. It makes things worse for a president, for the CEO, for the priest, the neighbor. They worsen their own situation. There's no leadership in the friendship there, which is what we're supposed to be with each other. We're supposed to be friends. We're supposed to be throwing life rings to people, helping each other out. We're supposed to be a light to other men, not a manure truck smothering them in shit. Look, if you're surrounded by darkness, you can strike a match or you can keep bitching about the darkness, which seems to be what a lot of men do. They complain, especially Catholic men, complain about basically all men are terrible. All men are horribly sinful. They're just wretches. That's not helpful. You're a Catholic, for crying out loud. Or if you're listening to this and you are a Catholic, you're a Catholic. You're supposed to be the leader of men, not piss on them. I think part of the reason that these men complain about the darkness, about how bad other men are, is they feel just that. They feel surrounded by darkness. They feel surrounded. They feel overwhelmed by the problem. Part of this, I think, is that a lot of the men who are posting things like this spend most of their days on Twitter because they're professional content creators, and so they're looking for fodder. But Twitter is not real life. The people on Twitter are not real life. They don't even act like that and talk like that in real life. The same people posting those things, they do not act and talk like that in real life. So when many people are just watching videos on Twitter and reading posts on Twitter and arguing on Twitter, they have the impression that that this is a representative experience of human life in America, and it's just not. And people say stupid stuff online all the time. People who don't even mean to say stupid stuff end up saying stupid stuff. I mean, Matt Fradd did a post recently within the last month or so, 10 things that I regret saying. Fair enough. When you spend a tremendous amount of your time online and being recorded, you're going to say things that you regret. Hey, even when you're not being recorded, you're going to say a bunch of things that you regret. It's just the whole world doesn't see them. But I think that that's part of the problem, is that the content creators spend an exorbitant amount of time online where they're not getting an actual human experience. They're getting emotions of human in an anonymous setting, not seeing other people face to face. And I think that creates a false sense of the experience of other humans. I think probably if you had a barbecue and invited all of these people, they would be a lot kinder to each other face to face than they are on Twitter. I think social media, like I've said in the past, I think social media just lends itself to people's differences rising up to the surface without the human connection of face-to-face conversation. I think people get particularly pessimistic. I think it destroys friendships. I know it's destroyed some of mine. But I think that a lot of these men, the content creators who talk about the professional content creators who dump on men, feel particularly hopeless about the situation, overwhelmed by the problem. They also don't seem to understand what they can do about it. Man, this has been trained out of us. And if you're a millennial, you probably didn't get this modeling from your parents. Gen X seems to have received a bit more insight on this. I suspect not being raised on the internet and thus having more relationship connections, maybe every kid in the neighborhood being tossed out into the wild at the same time created trauma bonds between them. But Gen X seemed to learn the value of friendship and relationships and the power of being present to people, to each other. Instead of being tossed out of the house to go play, millennials were given electronic devices as babysitters. And they never really experienced those kinds of connections that the Gen X kids did. Many parents of the millennials were helicopter parents. They were so afraid of the outside world that they didn't even allow their kids to go outside and play with others. They'd rather they stay inside and play video games than go outside and ride bikes and jump in the creek and maybe fall and break a leg or an arm or something. But they didn't want them to suffer. And so they kept them inside. How many neighborhoods that are full of kids do you find no bicycles out in the front yard? Never see kids outside. So I think Gen X got a better helping of this lesson, which I'm about to describe. In case you have never heard it, the point is this. The lesson that I think Gen X has learned better than the millennials is this, and better than the millennials' parents is this. Men, being present to other men, listening to other men, telling them that you're proud of them, recognizing their efforts and affirming them in it, celebrating their achievements, no matter how small, is extraordinarily powerful. Men need this. I need this. You need this. You need this. You know you need this. This is a need. Not to heal trauma, although it can help, but that's not it. It's as an aspect of our creation. We need this. How many of you walk around going, God, nobody ever appreciates me. I go to work, I make all the money, I come home, the kids just keep asking for things, the wife keeps asking for things, nobody ever appreciates me. You need this. You need other men to say, hey, you're doing a great job. I see what you're doing. Yeah, fair enough. You do a lot of work and nobody says thank you for it. Fair enough. That sucks. You need this validation. You need to be told that your efforts are recognized. You need to be told that somebody's proud of you. You need to be told that you're worthy of love, because you don't hear that very often. But other men need that too. And you have the power to do that. You have the power to be that for somebody else, even if you are suffering in that in yourself. If you have that alcoholic friend or that cousin who can't seem to get on his feet, tell him that he's worthy of love. Give him a hug. Tell him you're proud of him when he made it a month sober. When he drinks again, and he probably will, don't be surprised. Sit and listen to him. Maybe you call him on the phone and y'all talk about podcasts. Maybe you talk about this podcast. Maybe you talk about history podcasts. Maybe you talk about, what have you been doing lately? Oh, I went on a trip, on a bicycle trip. Oh, that's great. Tell me about it. It doesn't really matter the topic. You're there listening to him, connecting with him. Most people suffer from a tremendous lack of connection, a lack of the sense of belonging, or an unfulfilled sense of belonging. Just simply by having a conversation with another guy and telling him, I'm proud of you. You're doing a good job. Encouraging him in that way is so doggone life-giving. Other men need that. Give that part of yourself to these other men. These men that you piss on, these men that you say they're just awful men. Give of yourself to them. Basically act kind of like a father figure or a big brother figure to him. Before everything was pathologized and put in all these boxes. Whoops. Well, okay, that's an appropriate word because these boxes are completely diabolical. What we have, these definitions of relationship in American life right now, two guys can't be friends and like hug each other, put their arms around each other, slap each other on the back, all of those without being thought, oh, are they, weird? We have to put everything in these stupid boxes all the time. You have to define everything. Everything has to be basically turned into an entry of the DSM-5. But yes, basically act a little bit like a father figure or a big brother figure to him, even if he's older than you. He needs those things too. Yes, it's your job. If you think, well, it's not my job to be his father, you may have your own hang-ups that need to be healed. You do this. You treat other men well. Encourage them because it's a central necessity of human life and because it's good old-fashioned Christian charity, for God's sake. You need this connection and charity too. What if some guy out there is looking at you going, take John under my wing? Since when is that my job? Shoot, man. I don't believe in karma, but I do believe that if you piss on other people, God will withhold gifts and goodness from your life until you learn some humility. And what I've seen professionally working with people who are struggling for a very long time, that can be a long time that God withholds those gifts and goodness from your life until you learn humility. Now, what seems to be the common thread here is that many of these commentators, seem to have decent wives. The commentators, the men who are dumping on other men about being bad men, bad husbands, they're just sinful or they're not the traditional Catholic husbands, whatever. These commentators seem to have decent wives. Or they fight loudly and disrespectfully, but because they saw that modeled in childhood, they think that it's normal and okay. Fine, whatever. What was it, like Colonel Bergoglio talking about smashing a dish every once in a while in a marital fight? Well, for one, the guy was not ever married. But for two, that's normal in a lot of marriages. And both spouses seem to think that that's normal and that that's okay, whatever. If that works for you, great. But that's not great in a lot of marriages. And it's not a matter of weakness. There's whatever. But the men with decent wives can't fathom what many men, even Catholic men, even some traditional Latin Mass Catholic men have to live with. It's not an inconvenience that they're dealing with. It's outright psychological abuse and even sometimes physical abuse. Men with healthy marriages have no idea what goes on and how widespread it is. And many times when they are confronted with those, they kind of walk away and go, oh gosh, man, they have a rough marriage. And they back off. They don't want to get in the middle of it. And it's not just backwoods hicks with 3 teeth and an alcohol problem like you see in movies that have these problems. These are good men, albeit many of them are very weak, but they came by it honestly because that's what they were taught. Just like women generally came by their bad behavior honestly. That's what they were taught, either by their parents or by the media, the movies. It was modeled for them in all of the media, online, everything else. So when Michael Knowles debates Pearl Davis, he sounds to me as though he doesn't believe how bad marriage is for so many men because he doesn't experience it. It sounds like he's got a pretty decent wife. He seems like a really intelligent guy, and he's doing well in life. He sounds like he has a pretty decent wife. But he sounds to me as though he doesn't believe how bad marriage is on the daily for so many men because he doesn't experience it, and those men don't run in his social circle. You can't become a high-achieving man with a wife who does things like have these emotional explosions at you on the daily. It might be rare. You don't become a well-rounded, healthy Catholic man, husband and father who's present all the time if your wife is a complete basket case. Now, before I was a counselor, I was a 911 dispatcher. When I was a grad student for counseling, I spent 1,000 hours volunteering in the ER in the local hospital for my internship. There's a lot of ugly out there. But everyone believes the female victims, but nobody believes the male victims. And the female victims are more likely to make false claims, and the male victims are more likely to cover up their wife's misbehavior. This was evidenced, and I'll do an episode on this later, but Shannon Curry, she was the forensic psychologist in the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation case. The Amber Heard's attorney said it's common for the intimate partner violence perpetrator to gaslight the victim, Curry. That's a characteristic of psychological abuse. Yes. The Heard's attorney. It's common then for them to accuse the victim of being the perpetrator, Curry. That's a characteristic of abuse from women perpetrated against men. It's actually very, very common. About 90% of male victims of intimate partner violence, IPV, have reported that a female partner who abuses them makes threats to report their partner as an abuser. It's less common for men to make that statement to female partners just because there's less potential consequence. Heard's attorney. And it's distressing for the victim to be accused, Curry. Yes. It caused them a lot of fear? Certainly. Distress? Absolutely, yes. And in fact, they feel falsely accused, correct? Yes. Paranoid? Yes. Frightened? Yes. Afraid that everyone's going to believe the perpetrator, correct? Yes. Afraid they're going to lose their reputation, correct? Yes. The culture is full of this, though. Everyone believes the female victims. Nobody believes the male victims. The female victims are more likely to make false claims, and the male victims are more likely to cover up that they're being abused, or even blame themselves for it. Just making demands of men, single and married, despite the fact that men built Western civilization and keep it running. And most women haven't the slightest idea what went into that because they have little interest in how or why things work. Anyways, I saw a post the other day on Facebook. Like I said, Facebook is not real life. But I saw a post, and it said 18 things men do to ruin their marriages. It was obviously written by a woman, and the commenters all basically said the same thing, misquoting or interpreting Ephesians 5 and demanding that husbands just die to themselves. Every time there's hardship, die to yourself. Every time there's hardship, die to yourself, was essentially the pattern in the comments. But the test they wanted them to die for themselves was in giving her material goods, money, or spending more money on her than he uses to help other people. The implied message was, give your wife all the things she wants and when she wants them, or you're a bad husband and not like Christ. The post was based on comparison. One of the 18 things, he spends more money helping others than he does on you. That's a bit vain. Does dollar amount equal love? Does the fact that he gives out $1,000 to the homeless each month but doesn't give her $1,000 to spend however she wants, does that make him a bad husband? Or that he paid somebody else's rent who couldn't afford it, but he didn't give his wife that much money? Does he feed, clothe, care for his wife? Then dollar amount doesn't matter. That's vanity. That's pride. That has nothing to do with anything in Scripture, nothing in the Catechism, nothing Christian. Well, if you give $5,000 to help so-and-so, you better give her $5,000 in order to do as well. You spend more money on helping other people than you do on her. Comparison is the thief of joy. Okay, let's talk a little bit about instinct here, okay? Instinct is the lowest, the most animalistic of the faculties of the soul. You have 6 faculties which are in hierarchical order. The top one being the most exclusively human, not shared by any other creature, and the lower ones being most animalistic, shared by basically every creature. Even a slug has the instinct toward self-preservation and reproduction. From the top, in order of hierarchy, there's the intellect, the will, memory, emotions, appetites, and instinct. Now, in having an intellect and having a will, and having the will that properly follows the intellect, like your will, meaning the things that you do, it properly follows your intellect. So you think first and then you act. One is able to choose what is right and good if your will properly follows or is properly ordered under the intellect. One is able to choose what is right and good. That's the exercise of virtue. But a person whose will follows the emotions, the appetites, or the instinct is a person lacking in virtue. They are not considering what is right and good. They are acting upon how they feel. I bring this up because I read another post the other day. It said, weak men ruin marriages, not because they're aggressive, controlling, or toxic like the world claims, but because they are passive, avoid conflict, and stop leading. A wife loses respect for a man who won't make decisions, who seeks validation instead of standing firm, who becomes lazy and lets the relationship drift. She may not say it, but she feels it. And when respect dies, so does attraction. A strong marriage starts with a strong man. That means setting the tone, enforcing standards, and leading with confidence, not sitting back and hoping everything stays fine. Are you leading in your marriage or just coasting until it falls apart? Now, I'm not reading this to dump on them, but I want to make something clear about it. I wonder if it's helpful to clarify that men aren't passive, conflict avoidant, and cease to be led because they had a conscious choice about it, but because they were trained by everybody to be this way. If this is a war, we have to properly identify the enemy. Setting the tone, enforcing standards, and leading with confidence, as the post said, is countercultural, and he's going to get flack for it. I was a member of a men's-only signal group years ago that had about 60 men in it. I started posting stuff in it. That's the same as the stuff I talk about on this show. And a few men started telling their wives what's going on in the signal group. And their wives contacted my wife asking if she was okay. Are you okay? Oh my gosh, I heard what your husband said. Are you okay? Wondering if she was being abused, telling her, you can trust me if you need help. Seriously?
Are you mental?
Talking about the ways in which women harm their relationships and how guys can set boundaries ends up in women thinking that I'm abusing my wife. That's insane. But that's where the culture has gone, and with no small part played by men like the ones who told the secrets in the guys' talk. So leading in marriage, truly leading, is going to get you attacked by everyone, including your wife, including your friends, because she's not ready to follow. As I've said many times, it's not following if she's telling you how to lead or complaining about it in any way. Sometimes that means he's leading less strictly than she thinks he should. Well, guess what? That's still his leadership style. And she must follow that too and stop complaining about it. There are ways to communicate, but that depends largely on his personality traits, which vary greatly. So I won't go into that here. There's a difference between leading loosely and not leading at all. Okay, guys? Though the line is not always clear. Some husbands leave much to a wife's judgment, and in many marriages that may work. She may have good judgment, high emotional maturity, and high competence, low in neuroticism. That's low in falling into negative emotional states. Those don't seem to be the wives that complain about their marriages or about their husbands not leading. The ones complaining seem to be the ones very high in neuroticism, very low in emotional intelligence, have poor judgment, and low in competence. They just can't do a lot. They lack deep, lasting friendships. They don't know how to connect with their children. They're filled with frustration and anger. They don't have very many skills, nor the internal conscientiousness and industriousness to see that there's a problem with themselves, identify exactly what's wrong, and make effective changes in their own lives. Instead, they just kind of gripe at their husbands to fix it, or at their kids, or whomever needs to be griped at. They're bitter and resentful and frustrated. Fair enough. The resources for women are in the millions, yet those resources generally suck. Women don't seem to understand how women work. They just parrot the same things about what they think they want, but few of those resources offer anything deeper than emotional fulfillment, which is fleeting. Does he make you happy? Are you happy in this relationship? What do you have to do to be happy? And it's an obsession with maintaining the power dynamic in the relationship. So part of the men aren't leading narrative comes from women who have significant lacks in their own lives, but it's more convenient to blame men instead. But it's counterproductive. Women just end up making themselves miserable in the long term by blaming men. It ruins their marriages, their children. It breaks their husbands down. Many husbands aren't going to fight for the marriage because it's not worth the price. They know their wives are willing to go much further to do damage and win than the husband is. He knows his wife taps into this evil that seeks to completely destroy and dominate him to win the fight, and he's not willing to go there. He doesn't know another way. There are few resources to show men exactly how to set those boundaries, how to respond when she gets fighty, how to avoid taking the bait. Many men aren't dealing with rational beings. They're dealing with women who have little self-regulation and are willing to become monsters. That's not conflict avoidance. That's not conflict. That's a bloodbath. For many men, they bring up a complaint, a legit complaint, and she gets defensive and deflects. She counterattacks. She changes the topics to some complaint she has against him, never having actually addressed his complaint. He follows her to that new topic. He answers that complaint, and she changes to another, and another, and another. I did a fantastic episode about this as a play-by-play of a fight from the movie The Breakup. I think that was episode 3. Check it out. It's based on the Base Marriage Podcast on YouTube. I went through the video. You get to see video clips and everything. It's great. But she does this very thing. In this movie, she moves the goalpost, takes it out of context, treats him like he's ridiculous with her complaint. He answers it. She moves the goalpost again. Lather, rinse, repeat, yada, yada, yada. Basically, he has to lose so she can win. She's trying to figure out how to make him lose. In many relationships, she'll even provoke him to anger, like really provoke him, so she can point to him as being the cause of the problems and then tell him how bad he is. Many wives do this. These aren't just atheist, non-religious, pro-choice, septum-piercing women. These are Christian women, Catholic women, traditional Latin mass women. I work with these people from all over the country. The good wives out there listening who have never heard this before, if you heard some of the things the wives say about their husbands, you would cry. And if any of you women are listening and starting to defend the wife or becoming protective of her, you have your own problems.
Shots fired.
Why? Because you're so enmeshed in the sisterhood that you defend a sister for nearly any offense against her husband, and you do away with any punishment because she showed a little remorse and regret, even if it was disingenuous. Well, that brings us to the sisterhood. And before I continue on down this path about the sisterhood, let me just recap and say, men, be good to each other. Take care of each other. Watch out for each other. Say, I'm proud of you when some guy that you know did something pretty cool. When he made an effort towards something and he was successful. When he's struggling with something and he actually had a little bit of success. Tell him you're proud of him. Give him a hug. Encourage him. Go out to lunch with him and just listen to him. Give of yourself. Build up other men instead of pissing on them. Okay, back to the sisterhood. The sisterhood is this invisible hive mind. It's like the Borg in Star Trek. Women can bash each other, complain, gossip, badmouth, etc. all day long. But if a man is involved, the sisterhood circles the wagon and the man is automatically the bad guy regardless of the truth. This too is deeply entrenched among Christian women, among Catholic women, even among traditional Latin Mass women. The sisterhood has absolutely nothing to do with truth or charity or the virtues of the Blessed Virgin Mary. It is 100% about instinct and appetites and emotions. The sisterhood will encourage women to divorce their husbands and come up with what they believe are valid reasons for doing so, then demonize him for putting up a fight to maintain any semblance of financial stability. The sisterhood is 100% pure, unadulterated lust for power, complete lack of empathy. Everyone exists as a commodity for your exploitation and satisfaction. The sisterhood is a plague of locusts. Fidelity to the sisterhood seems to be inversely correlated with emotional intelligence. The lower the emotional intelligence, the higher the fidelity to the sisterhood. The higher the emotional intelligence, the less likely for a woman to remain faithful to the sisterhood. And a woman with high emotional intelligence can recognize when emotion interferes with reality and the intellect and can take meaningful steps to not let her emotions and instinct control her. Case in point, I saw a reel on the Facebook of a woman with her tummy exposed, carrying maybe 20 or 30 extra pounds, dumping on people who said they are not attracted to that. First, what the hell? Why are we even having this debate, and why are you posting that nonsense on Facebook? It's all about attention and affirmation, positive feedback. Why are you showing your body in any shape like that online, and why are we even discussing it? The next point, the main point, is this woman is not athletic. She is carrying 20 or 30 pounds of belly on her. She's had kids. Fair enough. Okay, that's fine. I'm not going to say that that's a problem. She was kind of reveling in her body like that and expressed that she had no intention of doing anything about it. Fine. Fair enough. You don't have to. There is no standard that you have to meet. She should have no one in mind to please but her husband. So it doesn't even belong online. But the comments were filled with women saying, "You look amazing," in all caps, and "You have an amazing body." Nigga, please. I understand wanting to console a person or stick up for someone who is being bullied. The problem comes when we're going to completely redefine the meanings of words and bend facts into an amorphous monster that doesn't at all resemble reality. By what standard does she look amazing? Not even by her own standard does she look amazing. She's shooting for, "I'm fine with it." Do words even have meaning anymore? A pooch the size of a beer belly isn't amazing. Have what you have, but the amazing business, and it was hundreds of comments and likes using that word, is beyond rational. This is the sisterhood. It's absolutely detached from reality and feeds entirely on emotion and the lust for power. The lust for PowerPoint is based on lust for PowerPoint. Nobody lusts for PowerPoint. The lust, how about Excel or Word? The lust for PowerPoint is based on that many men were posting that her body was not attractive. So the sisterhood reacted by saying it was amazing. You cannot debate the sisterhood. The sisterhood knows no consequences. They just keep ratcheting up. It emboldens them like battle scars to argue against them. The sisterhood has justifications for any action taken by one of its members, including divorcing their husbands, including bullying and pressuring husbands into, quote, behaving or becoming submissive to their wives. The sisterhood will justify actions up to and including violating the law. Their objective is to protect the sisterhood and the sisters. Consequences be damned. They will manipulate, deceive, lie, steal, coerce, and exploit even their own children in effort to win. Even if Christian women disagree with the specific actions taken by a woman in the sisterhood, they will still find a way to dismiss accusations or help her escape accountability. At best, yeah, she shouldn't have done that. Then deflect to, but he did this and he shouldn't have done that either. The mantra of the sisterhood is non serviam. They serve no one but themselves, and truth has no place in their ranks, only protectionism. They serve not even God. The concept of God is often just a tool to use to justify their behaviors and belittle men so they can maintain their power. Seemingly reasonable and well-formed Christian women must be on guard against their own proclivities toward the sisterhood because they are just as susceptible to being sucked in. What's the remedy for Christian women who are still somewhat enwrapped in the sisterhood? The faculties must be in right order. Recognize that her will is a slave to her lower faculties, her emotions, appetites, and instincts, and work to get her to follow her intellect regardless of how much emotions fight against it. That means desiring to do what is right and good in all situations. She must pray to God for the theological virtue of charity. A woman who dominates and rules over her husband is going to suffer a lack of charity because she usurps what isn't hers, which is sinful, and sin blocks the graces necessary for charity in the soul. Of course, if she intends to continue in her sisterhood inclinations, it may be necessary for a husband to intervene or have a talk with her, explain that it's not good for her friend, etc. It really all boils down to the woman's emotional immaturity, and that emotional immaturity is justified and even rewarded in women, almost like they're being subjected to social engineering. Anyways, if you cross the sisterhood, they're not impenetrable, but it's tough to get out of their grip. Basically, it takes the same attitude of not taking the bait in order to stay functional. It's just your wife's crazy stuff, but now there are multiple voices, but none of it's rational. Don't engage with them. The sisterhood have no rights in your relationship. They're basically moral support, or should I say immoral support, to your wife in engaging whatever borderline tendencies she may have. Thank you guys for tuning in. Y'all have a great day. God bless you. I will see you next time.